Right in the middle of a busy street, an eerie gate appeared, complete with a hazardous keep-out sign. It was a gate that local residents passed by completely unfazed, as if it were just another part of the city. Amidst that crowd stood a young man with a bright, beaming smile. His name was Yoon Jae-in. Starting today, he was officially on his own and leaving the orphanage. The reason Jae-in was humming so happily was that living as an orphan hadn't been easy, but now he had the government's resettlement support fund. Jae-in remembered an angel-like figure telling him, "Jae-in, there's a system that will triple the savings from your allowance. If you skip 100 Hamteria burgers, you'll end up being able to eat 200 of them." Hearing that, Jae-in's eyes lit up. Wait, Hamteria burgers get doubled. Jae-in excitedly headed into the bank, holding a piece of paper. "Thanks to the director's advice, I skipped eating Hamteria to save my allowance, and now it has tripled in my savings account." The seed has finally sprouted. He eagerly walked inside, completely unaware of a fully covered figure lurking behind him. "Now, I just need to pay the deposit, and my lease agreement will be all set." The guy had blood-red eyes. You could tell just by looking at him that he was bad news. Following protocol, Jae-in sat down at the service desk and asked the teller, "Could you please transfer the money here and open a Youth Hope savings account for me as well?" Even now, a huge smile remained plastered on his face. "Even after deducting the deposit and everything, I'll still have a whopping 31.65 million left. If I use this money to cover my living expenses while job hunting, my life is going to be super smooth sailing." Suddenly, that bad news guy swung a sword and shattered the glass. As if worried people wouldn't realize who he was, he yelled at the top of his lungs, "This is a robbery." Nobody panicked. They just flinched and looked over. "What's going on? A robbery? Out in the open like this?" Before even making a move, he kept barking warnings. "This is a robbery. Everybody freeze, don't move." Jae-in's face turned instantly pale. His smooth, peaceful life. The robber brandished his long sword, making everyone start to panic, freeze, and raise their hands. He screamed at the top of his lungs, "I said don't move. I told you to stop moving and put your hands up." Right at that moment, a handgun was raised. "Freeze right there." The one holding it was the bank security guard. He bravely confronted the robber. "Make a move, and I'll shoot." Even so, the robber didn't look scared in the slightest. Instead, he smirked. He then whipped his sword around so fast it became a total blur. The robber confidently dropped into an offensive stance, his eyes glowing red as he taunted the guard. "Go ahead, take your best shot." At this point, not just the crowd, but Jae-in too realized. Could he be an awakened? From what Jae-in knew, over a decade ago, dimensional gates started popping up all over the world, and monsters poured out from them. The frontline warriors protected humanity by fighting against them. People who had surpassed human limits thanks to awakening magic power. They were known as awakened. Jae-in couldn't help shouting out a warning. Oh crap. If he's an awakened, he can easily block something like a bullet. Unfazed, the guard pulled the trigger and fired a shot. The golden bullet sped up as it flew through the air. The robber didn't flinch at all and moved to intercept it. A sly glint flashed in his eyes along with a smug smile. The robber swung his hand in a sharp horizontal slash. Everyone watching stood there with their jaws dropped in shock. The guy just stood there completely still after the gunshot. Seeing this, the customers alongside Jae-in turned pale as sheets. The robber's smile grew even wider. But in reality, the bullet had lodged right smack in the middle of his forehead. In a split second, the robber collapsed with a thud, yelling, "Damn, that bullet was fast as hell." Now free from the threat, the other customers began whispering about Jae-in, leaving him utterly speechless with embarrassment. "Wait, didn't that kid earlier say the robber would block the bullet or something?" The guard turned around, worried, and asked, "Is everyone all right? Is anyone hurt?" At that moment, the sword the robber had been holding suddenly flashed with light, and demonic energy surged all around it as a harsh voice hurled abuse. "You useless bastard! How could you be this pathetically weak?" Dark purple flames burst from his sword. "Mortal, take up my blade. I shall grant you power." Many people quickly recognized it as an evil entity. The sword kept spewing temptation, claim blood, accumulate karma, and become the ultimate entity. In that brief moment before being hypnotized, people still tried to warn each other, "No, if you touch it, A nearby staff member urgently held back the person in front of him. "Mrs. Bakrai, you have to hold on." But by now, her face had turned twisted. Bakrai kept mumbling under her breath, "Power. Overwhelming power to beat the living daylights out of my old man." Everything plunged into chaos, even more terrifying than when the robber had swung his sword. Hyun-soo closed his eyes and counted. "Count to 100, son. Mom, I'm going to be strong. Our Father in heaven, lead us not into temptation." A burly man yelled out, "Hold your ground. Everyone keep enduring." They shouted continuously to cheer each other on. Suddenly, Jaein stood up abruptly. Unbelievably, he had lost his mind and was completely entranced. "My precious!" Seeing Jaein charge forward like a moth to a flame, the crowd panicked and yelled, "Someone stop that kid!" But his speed made them hesitate to step forward. "This is crazy. He's been completely bewitched by that evil thing. Don't let him touch that sword." Even those who dared to step up missed their grab. The guard grabbed him and warned, "Cross this line, and there's no turning back." Just as his hand was about to catch him, Jaein dodged wildly like a man possessed. In the blink of an eye, his hand grabbed the hilt of the sword. Dark magic surged through his entire body, making Jaein burst into a loud laugh. The customers stood there frozen in sheer helplessness. Oh no! He took hold of that evil artifact. A terrifying energy radiated from the jewel embedded in the hilt. But a second later, Jaein went completely stiff and collapsed to his knees. The customers grew more panicked by the second. That kid has been totally possessed by that evil entity. Feeling so useless when we couldn't even save him is just awful. The moment Mrs. Bakrai snapped out of it, she felt a pang of pity for Jaein, thinking his eyes were closed for good. The girl next to her quickly realized, the illusion affecting us has been lifted. The guard stepped closer to Jaein, asking anxiously, "Hey kid, are you okay?" Seeing no response, the guard asked again, even more worried, "Hey kid, are you all right?" Kid. Right now, Jaein was lost in another realm. Floating right in front of him was a crimson eye. "My new host." Before he could even process it, the voice monologued on its own. "To seal our covenant, offer up your most precious possession." Jaein hastily patted himself down, about to refuse. "My most precious possession? No." The mesmerizing voice rang out once more. "That is right. Do you not desire it? The power to look down upon the world, to stand above tens of thousands, where no one can ever look down on you again." Those words sank Jaein deeper in a trance. "I want it. I want it." The voice coaxed him further. "Then offer it up, your most precious possession." Jaehin's eyes briefly went hazy. Outside, he suddenly stood up, shocking everyone. His whole body trembled, yet his hand held the sword in a vice grip. Suddenly, his head snapped back with a contorted face, and he charged toward the crowd of customers with the sword. Everyone screamed in terror. "He's completely possessed." But Jaehin dashed right past them, heading straight for the service counter. He slammed a green bank book onto the counter. The bank teller stared blankly, wondering to herself, "A savings bank book?" She calmly processed it out of habit. "The transaction is complete." The sword practically turned red with rage. "Your most precious possession," Jaehin said to him indifferently. "Didn't you know? My most precious possession. I just offered up 31.65 million won." Jaehin clutched his head and complained, "The price of power is way too steep." The sword was left utterly speechless. "You pathetic idiot. To think a black dragon like me got bound to a contract over money, and a random, oddly specific amount like 31.65 million won at that." Jaehin muttered in utter disbelief. It actually worked? How on earth did that actually work? Only then did he ask his main question. "So where's my power? I offered up my most precious possession, didn't I?" Like it or not, the contract was done. The black dragon begrudgingly assessed the situation. "Money? I can't accept." "Well, I guess it counts." Suddenly, someone behind him ordered Jaehin to freeze. She reached inside her jacket coat and pulled out an ID badge. Stepping forward, Chung-Hwa introduced herself. "I am Kong Chung-Hwa from Squad 2 of the Hunter Management Bureau's Special Task Force. Drop the sword and surrender." Jaehin's face turned pale as a sheet, his mouth agape. "Special Task Force. Hunter Special Task Force." I heard they'll shoot you dead on the spot if you don't listen. Reading the room instantly, he tossed the sword aside and threw his hands up in surrender. Understood. Is this okay? Chunghwa narrowed her eyes in sharp scrutiny. Seeing the sword still stuck to his hand, she repeated her order impatiently. I told you to drop the sword. Jayan tried frantically to shake it off, throw it, and hurl it away. No. Wait, since when did this thing? What is happening? No matter how Jayan tried to throw it, it kept snapping back into his hand, frustrating him to no end. Why won't he go away? The black dragon inside the sword burst out laughing with glee. It's useless. The moment the contract was formed, I became bound to you. Seeing Jayan acting like a clown, Chunghwa prepared to take action. Did you not hear me? The joints of her mechanical hand slowly unfolded one by one. It transformed into a gun pointed straight at Jayan. Terrified, he screamed at the top of his lungs, "Wait a second. I'm trying to throw the sword away." The black dragon inside kept clamoring, "I thirst for blood." Jayan tried his best to explain honestly. It keeps demanding blood. No, wait, that's not it. It keeps automatically returning to my hand. Chunghwa coldly prepped her first shot. Seeing the glowing light intensify, Jayan begged for mercy in pure horror. I surrender. Meanwhile, the black dragon muttered, "Hurry up and kill him." Right then, Mrs. Bakrai suddenly began thrashing around again. "Give me the power to send my old man across the Styx." The people next to her hastily pinned her down. "Ma'am, the illusion is already over." Seriously, where on earth was she getting all this strength? Unsure of what lay behind the scenes, Jayan simply sat blankly under the glaring light. A man pulled up a chair opposite him. Removing his glasses, he introduced himself. "I'm Captain Du Kyung, leader of Special Task Force Squad 2 at the Bureau." Jayan answered mechanically. "I'm Yoon Jayan, graduate of Class 37 from Emmanuel Orphanage. Currently unemployed." Seeing him freeze up, Du Kyung chuckled softly with relief. "We checked the surveillance footage, and the misunderstanding has been cleared up, so you can rest easy." Jayan was rendered speechlessly exasperated remembering what had just happened. "I'm glad the misunderstanding was cleared up, but I almost lost my life back there. None of you believed a single word I said, and just went ahead, and—" Du Kyung chuckled amiably to smooth things over. "She's just a bit rigid, that's all." Suddenly, his expression grew serious. "However, Jayan, your situation isn't looking too good. Right now, you formed a contract with a cursed object from a gate." This sparked Jayan's curiosity. A cursed object? Understanding his confusion, Du Kyung readily explained, "We refer to magic items coming from the other side of gates as cursed objects. Your cursed object is classified as a demonic sword. It bewitches those around it and corrupts its wielder." Only then did Jayan nod, a wave of realization washing over him. "No wonder." He eagerly asked for a solution. "What should I do? Even if I throw it away, it comes right back." This was precisely the issue Du Kyung was concerned about as well. It's already bound to you, so it's going to be extremely difficult unless the contract is severed. While reviewing the footage, he had studied it very carefully. However, if even an elderly woman and a child could resist its enchantment, then at best, it's merely an E-rank cursed object. Jayan stared down at the sword with a scoffing look on his face. An E-rank black dragon? It grumbled in fuming rage. "You arrogant brat. You're the one who was completely enchanted while everyone else managed to resist it." Jayan suddenly looked up in thought, only now connecting the dots. "Wait, for real?" he asked Du Kyung hesitantly in a timid voice. "By the way, I had to pay a price to form this contract with the demonic sword." He asked for clarification, feeling suspicious. "Are you referring to that donation to the orphanage?" Jayan asked anxiously in a low voice. "Is there any way I can get that money back? That was my entire net worth." Du Kyung shook his head in refusal. "Even if it's only E-rank, a demonic sword is still a demonic sword. You could suffer immense harm if you try to reverse the karmic causality of the contract." Dejected and at a loss for what to do, Jayan had no choice but to accept it. "Well, it's still the orphanage where I was born and raised anyway, so I'll just consider it doing a good deed. Besides, it was just savings from the allowance the director gave me. Combined with the government support fund, it wasn't exactly money I earned with my own hands anyway." Before long, Their conversation came to an end. Du Kyung and Chunghwa walk him to the door to see him off. Be careful for the time being, and contact us immediately if anything happens. Holding the sword, Jaein took his leave. Yes, thank you. I'll be taking off then. Troubled, Chunghwa asked Du Kyung, is it really okay to let a civilian walk out carrying a demonic sword like this? He was equally helpless. By standard procedure, he should be sent to the isolation ward. But the isolation ward doesn't have a single opening right now. Saying this, Du Kyung reached out to touch his ring, grimacing as he tried with all his might to yank it off. But the ring didn't budge an inch. The harder he pulled, the more sweat poured off Du Kyung's body. Reaching his absolute limit, he finally gave up. Holding out his hand, he asked Chunghwa, when even we can't take something like this off, can we really pull it off with him? Aging calm, she instinctively glanced down at her mechanical hand and came to the exact same conclusion. I can't. Du Kyung readily agreed. Right? Once a human has been invaded by a cursed object, they can never break free. There was one thing he knew all too well. Sooner or later, corruption would claim them in the end. Yet, even though it kept returning to him, Jaein had tried to throw the cursed object away on his own. What's more, a child and an elderly woman were able to resist its temptation. And the price of the contract was simply cash. By Du Kyung's calculations, at this level, it wasn't an overly dangerous item. We can retrieve it whenever necessary. Plus, he didn't seem overly distraught over losing his entire net worth either. Even so, Chunghwa remained hesitant. Could it be that the demonic sword's rank is too low to corrupt its master? He hoped that was the case too. That's a possibility as well, unless he has corruption resistance. Chunghwa seriously entertained the thought. Corruption resistance? Has there ever been a case like that before? Du Kyung immediately set the record straight. Of course not. Since the gates first opened, there hasn't been a single instance of someone being immune to corruption. He gave her a subtle nod. For now, let me keep an eye on him a bit longer. Du Kyung could still make out Jaein's departing figure in the distance. There's a reason Du Kyung made that call. Because I don't want to kill an innocent civilian. The moment he stepped into the convenience store, the cashier greeted him. Welcome, Jaein muttered tiredly under his breath. So much happened today. I'm seriously starving. The cashier's face went completely pale. A sword? A robbery? Jaein paid her no mind and held the sword out in front of his face, complaining, Stop blabbering about blood already. You don't even eat this stuff. I'm the one having dinner. Scared out of her mind, she desperately fought back the urge to scream. He's talking to a sword. Is he insane? Once he was done picking out his items, Jaein placed them down to pay. I'll take this cup noodle. The female cashier spoke up nervously. Excuse me, sir. It seems like your card has insufficient funds. Jaein blurted out in utter disbelief. What? It's just a single cup noodle. How can there not be enough? Only then did the horrifying realization strike him. His entire net worth had been donated to the orphanage. Jaein angrily gripped the sword tight, berating it. You murderous piece of trash. My money. Give me back my money right now. How did I end up not even having enough cash for cup noodles? You were the one who offered it up as the prize for the contract. The cashier turned pale as a sheet. The robber's finally showing his true colors. For some strange reason, Mrs. Bakrai was there too, wildly charging forward. Grant me power. Invincible power to beat my old man to a pulp. Caught off guard, Jaein swung his sword in shock. What on earth? Who are you, ma'am? Terrified, the cashier crouched deep under the counter, furiously punching in numbers 9. A police officer suddenly walked inside. Pardon the intrusion. We're looking for a missing person. Has anyone happened to see an elderly woman around here? All he saw was a guy holding a sword who looked like he was robbing an old lady. And someone crouched over, secretly making a call. The officer instantly drew his gun, barking out a threat. Hands up! Kidnapping robber! Jaein panicked, frantically trying to defend himself. It's a total misunderstanding. The black dragon's sword kept spewing temptation. Give me blood. Mrs. Bach, Rai charged forward like crazy. Power. In the end, Chunghwa arrived at the CS convenience store and smoothed everything over. Jaein trudged down the street, feeling utterly defeated, drawing countless stares along the way. Everyone was whispering under their breath. Oh boy, look at that guy walking around with an unsheathed sword. He's definitely a psycho. Every single word cut straight into Jane's ears. Gritting his teeth in fury, he blamed the Black Dragon. This is all your fault. Flashback to a week prior, during a job interview. Next applicant, please come in. The moment he walked in, all the HR interviewers gasped, looking up at Jane in shock. Even though he was wearing a suit, a sword was strapped to his waist. Hello, I am an applicant who will dedicate his very life to this company. In their eyes, his fiery determination made his smile look completely twisted. Applicant number 13, Yoon Jae-in, the HR managers instantly declared. Rejected. He's a murderous lunatic. And just like that, Jae-in got shot down and rejected. He enthusiastically tried his luck at manual labor loading next. This job requires heavy lifting, so carrying a sword around is a bit. Rejected. He couldn't even land a regular office job. This is a sales position, so carrying a sword around is a bit. No matter what he said, it was like talking to a brick wall to the recruiters. Boss, please just let me explain for a second. Application rejected. Jae-in tried applying for a waiting job, but the sword was way too long. This is a customer service job, so carrying a sword around is a bit. Rejected. While changing clothes one day, Jae-in knitted his brows in sheer helplessness. This isn't working. I need to leave the sword behind before my interview. Just as he bowed, the interviewer reassured him. It's all right. Our company isn't that strict. He cheerfully gave a thumbs up in praise. I have a great eye for people. You look very kind and hardworking. Yoon Jae-in, excellent, you're hired. He welcomed him warmly. Mr. Yoon, we're family from now on. Let's shake on it. Overjoyed, Jae-in hurriedly raised his hand. Yes, sir. Right then, a blurry shadow flashed past. In a split second, the sword was held right against the employer's neck. The scene left both of them frozen like stone statues. A moment later, he shouted in utter panic, "Where's security?" Even though Jae-in tried frantically to explain. This is just a misunderstanding. After everything that had happened, the employer wasn't hearing any of it. I knew it the second I laid eyes on you, you murderer. Application rejected. Back on the street in the present, Jae-in's rage had hit its absolute breaking point. Standing in the middle of the road, he snapped. The more he looked at it, the darker his expression grew with rage. It's all your fault. Driven past his limit, Jae-in hurled it away with all his force. Get the hell away from me. I told you to screw off. But when he looked down at his hand, it was still right there in his grip. Jae-in cried out in tragic despair. Get away from me. The Black Dragon's voice echoed from the Crimson Gem. Do not deny your destiny. Contract holder, claim blood and accumulate evil karma. Jae-in had heard it countless times, but he still couldn't be swayed. I'm really not interested. Suddenly, a sharp throbbing pain hit his head, causing Jae-in to drop to his knees. The Black Dragon burst into laughter, delivering the final blow. You held out remarkably well for a week, but this is the end. A faint haze of demonic energy wrapped around Jae-in, coaxing him. Commit evil. Contract holder, unleash those inner urges to your heart's content. Jae-in clutched his head, desperately trying to resist. Suddenly, one of his eyes flashed with light, and a devious smirk spread across Jae-in's face. Tilting his head, he gave in. Fine, I won't suppress these urges anymore. The Black Dragon chuckled in deep satisfaction. That's it. Step by step, you shall tread the path of corruption. Right then, Jae-in reached his hand into his pants pocket and pulled out 3 candy bars. Without a second thought, Jae-in gobbled them up, ravenously stuffing all of them into his mouth at once. He didn't even spare the wrappers, aggressively licking every last bit off them. The Black Dragon asked in utter confusion, What on earth are you doing? Jae-in explained with a triumphant grin. Energy bars are supposed to be eaten 1 per meal, but I just ate all of them at once. His hand squeezed the empty wrappers tight, and like a kid balling it up, he hurled it into an empty lot like throwing a grenade. The pile of wrappers lay scattered nakedly on the ground. The Black Dragon asked, bewildered, What in the world are you actually doing? Jae-in burst into pure delight. Don't you see? I didn't sort the recyclables, and I even littered right at the playground. He held the sword high with absolute confidence. That's right, I wield a demonic sword now. There's no need to hide my urges anymore. The Black Dragon felt that something was horribly off. Do you seriously think evil karma accumulates from stupid nonsense like this? Suddenly, Jayan snapped out of it. He stared blankly at his hands, wondering, what on earth did I just do? Jayan's face turned pale in absolute disbelief. Black Dragon, you bastard. I can't believe you corrupted me this far. Even the Black Dragon was about to explode at its wielder. I'm going crazy. Jayan grumbled in annoyance, but still bent down to pick up the trash and dropped it into the recycling bin. He let out a deep sigh of relief, as if he had just survived a life-or-death crisis. I managed to reverse it for now. Suddenly, an ominous dark mana surged around Jayan. Du Kyung's words from earlier echoed clearly in his ears. Reversing karmic causality will cause immense harm. As if being swallowed whole, Jayan felt like he was being dropped into a freefall down a bottomless pit. By the time Jayan regained consciousness, he snapped his eyes open in shock. The familiar surroundings left Jayan thoroughly bewildered. Where am I? My room? When on earth did I get back home? Before long, he noticed something strange. Heat radiated up from where his hand touched the floor. It was burning like fire. A chilly blast of cold air whirred down from above, making Jayan realize, is the air conditioner running? From the side, a wave of hot air blew in as well. Is the window open? The realization hit Jayan like a bolt of lightning out of the blue, destroying the environment. He turned pale as a horrifying thought crossed his mind. Don't tell me that by reversing karmic causality, I accidentally committed even more heinous crimes. Slowly, a few unintentional actions rushed back into Jayan's memory, giving someone directions by just explaining it verbally instead of walking them there. When the elevator doors were closing, even though someone frantically yelled, "Wait for me," he didn't press the open button, stealthily taking a seat reserved for the elderly. Every single one of those actions was driving Jayan absolutely insane. He blurted out in utter disbelief, Did I really commit such atrociously cruel acts? The Black Dragon underneath him was on the verge of being deep-fried, feebly ordering Jayan, "Turn off the heater. I'm getting roasted alive down here." It wasn't until his stomach started growling furiously that Jayan snapped back to his senses after the relentless series of shocks. I can't believe I still feel hungry after doing those terrible things. I am truly pathetic. The Black Dragon was the most helpless of all. What was even harder to believe was that those trivial acts actually counted as evil karma. Peeking into the empty fridge, Jayan muttered remorsefully under his breath, I'm completely out of food. So he had no choice but to drag his feet to the supermarket to buy groceries. A sticker advertising 50% off caught Jayan's eye. He grabbed it, squinting his eyes in sheer delight. What a steal! Just like before, wherever he went, he terrified everyone with the sword strapped to his hip. While he was eagerly shopping, someone called out to Jayan, "Hey, you kid." The supermarket security guard caught him red-handed. He demanded, "I don't care if you're a hunter or not. Why on earth did you bring a sword into a supermarket?" Jayan apologized out of sheer habit. "No, I'm sorry. Guess I can't stay here much longer. You want to check out? Please charge this to my card." Receiving the card, the cashier was quite surprised. "All right, an independent support card." She double-checked in disbelief. "You're not a hunter?" Jayan shook his head, answering honestly, "No, ma'am, I'm not." This confused her even more. Then why on earth are you carrying a sword around? After that, Jayan got relentlessly lectured by the cashier about how kids shouldn't try to carry swords, how dangerous it is, how he shouldn't be walking around with it, whether he had been in trouble before, on and on it went. Only after a long lecture did he finally swipe his card and get a successful payment notification. The cashier kept preaching endlessly, forcing Jayan to bolt out the door as fast as his legs could carry him. "I'm sorry." Back at his apartment complex, Jayan flopped down onto his bed and let out a long sigh of relief. Carrying this sword around keeps making everyone mistake me for a hunter. Suddenly, a wild idea popped into his head. Wait a second. Does that mean if I actually become a hunter, carrying a sword around would be completely legal? Thinking so, he immediately pulled out his phone to search for info on hunters. This wasn't entirely new to him. Jayan already had a rough idea. Ever since the gates appeared, a brand new profession had been born to stop monsters emerging from the dark zones. Not only was there the National Defense Force, but there were also the agents from the Management Bureau, like the ones Jayan had met the other day. On top of that, There was another tier, freelance hunters. They were the ones who explored the dark zones beyond the gates. To become a hunter, one had to pass the Management Bureau's evaluation exam and obtain a hunter license. Reading through the information, Jayan muttered under his breath, "I heard they make a ton of money." Suddenly, the black dragon broke its silence, demanding, "Blood! Feed me blood!" Jayan screamed at the top of his lungs in pure terror, startling himself completely. He suddenly recalled the bank robber from the other day, but that guy was merely an E-rank monster. Even a gun could take him down. Can I really become a hunter with this thing? Next to him, the black dragon kept nagging relentlessly. "Hurry up, gather blood and evil karma, so I can become the ruler of the world." Jayan stroked his chin, pondering seriously. I wonder if it can consume something else similar to blood. All of a sudden, a new idea struck him. "All right, I'll give you blood." Hearing that, the black dragon urged him excitedly. "Yes, blood. Give me blood." It could hardly believe it. "Am I finally going to drink blood?" Jayan placed it on a pedestal and immediately executed his technique. A heavy waterfall poured down with a roar. The black dragon cheered in amazement. "Oh, it's been so long since I last drank." Suddenly, it realized something was terribly off. "Wait, master, why does the blood taste so salty?" Jayan casually replied, "That's because people have been eating a high-sodium diet lately." Even so, the black dragon remained deeply suspicious. "The smell is kind of weird, too." Jayan promptly explained, "That's because people's cholesterol levels have been sky-high these days. Since all of this was happening in the bathroom, everyone can pretty much figure out what was going on." Yet the black dragon asked no further questions, even praising it with delight. "Now that's a fine meal." Helpless, Jayan rinsed off the sword while thinking to himself, "Urine is just a fluid filtered from blood anyway, so I wondered if it would work, and the damn thing actually drank it." The black dragon was even more thrilled. A nice shower right after a meal? What immaculate service! Jayan continued calculating. If it can drink urine, that means it doesn't necessarily have to be human blood, right? In that case, even monster blood. Suddenly, the black dragon asked, "Where exactly did this blood come from?" Jayan made up a flustered excuse. "I stabbed a handsome young man who happened to walk past." At first, the black dragon believed it. "Now that's a true host worthy of me." "Wait a minute, don't you try to fool me." It roared in a fit of rage. "An idiot who thinks littering at a playground is a sin would never stab someone. Do you take me for a fool?" Jayan casually let out a reaction. "Ah, I got caught." Seeing him walk away to grab a towel, the black dragon continuously pressed him. "Tell me the truth right now. Where on earth did that blood come from?" As Jayan meticulously wiped it down, the black dragon grew even more uneasy. "Why aren't you saying anything?" "Hold on. Don't tell me that wasn't blood." It called out frantically without stopping. "You brat, what on earth did you just feed me?" Jayan answered with a dark expression. "Does that really matter?" A giant question mark popped up over the black dragon. "What?" Jayan emphasized with absolute self-righteousness. "The important thing is that you felt satisfied and full, right?" It asked back, completely stunned. "What?" Jayan smiled gently and began telling a story. Once upon a time, there was a man named Great Master Wanhyo. One night, he had to take shelter in a cave and grew extremely thirsty in his sleep. He drank water from a vessel nearby. The next morning, he realized that the vessel was actually a human skull, and what he had drunk was stagnant rainwater trapped inside. Great Master Wanhyo attained enlightenment right then and there. He realized why the exact same water tasted refreshing yesterday, yet felt utterly repulsive today. Jayan quoted like a living Buddha, "All suffering and joy are created by the mind." In other words, all things arise from the mind alone. Perhaps what you just drank wasn't blood, but your own desperate craving for life. He even went on to play with words, quoting, "Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. That which is seen is void, and only through physical form does it become tangible." Blood, in essence, is also void. If you accept that truth, blood and urine are one and the same. After everything, the only word the black dragon caught was urine. Jayan put on a totally blank face. "I said all those deep, profound metaphors, so how did it manage to hit the nail right on the head?" The black dragon threw a massive temper tantrum, wailing loudly. Jayan could only try to soothe it in flustered embarrassment. Hey, I'm sorry, okay? I'll give you real blood next time. Stop crying. After taking a long, roundabout journey, Jayan finally went to apply for a hunter license the very next day. The scenery around here had already turned into night. A man was sitting leaned up against the base of a tree. He was panting heavily, his eyes darting back and forth in high alert. Around him lay numerous human corpses. He couldn't wrap his head around it. Damn it! How on earth did things turn out like this? Suddenly, a hand reached out and grabbed the tree trunk he was leaning against. A friendly, smiling face poked out, startling him so bad he let out a loud scream. Rewinding back a few hours, Jayan had arrived at the Hunter Management Bureau. He hesitantly tried to speak up. I'm here to register as a hunter. Then, Jayan smoothly received his card. Looking at it, he blinked a few times in sheer disbelief. They issue cards this easily? The administrative staff even handed over a friendly gift bag to Jayan. This is a welcome package. If you want to buy anything else, you'll have to pay for it yourself. She gave him enthusiastic instructions. You must complete at least one hunter mission per week. If you fail to meet the quota and receive 4 warnings, your license will be revoked. This dizzying pace left Jayan standing outside the door, still thoroughly bewildered. He stared at the card, his eyes twitching. That's it? No evaluation exam or anything? Just like this? Is this really okay? The Black Dragon didn't expect it either. It had been planning to show off by slicing the examiner's sword right in half. Jayan threw the thought to the back of his mind and pulled out his phone. First, I need to complete my mission quota. I should check the website. He logged in while browsing through the recommendations. The missions I can take right now are... The moment he read it, Jayan's eyes lit up bright. He instantly accepted the mission, 1,000,001. Afterwards, Jayan followed the address to a gate. His eyes constantly scanned the surroundings. Every single hunter was carrying a gun. Looks like guns really are better than swords. As Jayan walked past, those people couldn't help but look at him suspiciously. He isn't even carrying a gun. What kind of swordsman doesn't know better? He's so young, total rookie material. Kids these days only care about looking cool. Before Jayan could walk much further, someone enthusiastically struck up a conversation. Young man, is this your first mission? Jayan flinched and answered mechanically, ah yes. The man grinned, pleased with his correct guess. I thought so. Almost every hunter carries at least one gun these days. Tae-jin couldn't help laughing out loud, reminiscing about the old days. Man, back when I was young, I used to run around all over the place with just a sword too. The inspector quickly interrupted. Hunters, we will now begin measuring everyone's karma index. Knowing Jayan was a newcomer, Tae-jin asked him, do you know what the karma index is? Up ahead, after taking a measurement, the inspector called out, Hunter Park Min Soo, Karma Index 5226. He tried to explain in flustered panic. What? But I rested for a whole week. Tae-jin summed it up briefly for Jayan to understand. Your karma accumulates when operating inside dark zones. Once it exceeds 5,000, the risk of corruption skyrockets. That's why we have to measure it beforehand. Hunters with an index over 5,000 aren't allowed inside. Now, Jayan finally understood. I see. Suddenly, both of them were drawn by another sound. Turns out everyone was cheering after hearing Hunter Park, Jun Shik, 2976. Even Tae-jin couldn't help but admire him. As expected of Mr. Park, going in and out of dark zones so frequently, yet his index stays under 3,000. Purifying himself that fast is a talent in its own right. You're probably going to awaken real soon. He nudged Jayan and asked, You've never had your karma index measured before, right? Jayan answered honestly, Yeah, today is my first time. The man then let him in on a secret. The lower your initial karma index, the faster your purification rate. It's an innate talent. Even a result in the 800 range is considered quite talented. I heard Mr. Park's initial score was 780. Tae-jin was fairly curious. Who knows? Maybe you'll land somewhere around 800 or 702? The inspector interrupted, calling out a name. Next, Hunter Kim Tae-jin. He immediately walked over. Yes. The moment she looked at Tae-jin's index, she gasped in surprise. 4533. That's cutting it real close. Even Tae-jin was caught off guard. Oh man, When did it get so high? After this mission, I'm definitely going to have to take a break for a while. Very quickly, the inspector called his name. Next, Hunter Yoon-jae. He stepped forward, replying, yes. The inspector raised the scanner to sweep over him, as usual, then slowly checked the karma index. Suddenly, her eyes narrowed, and she read it aloud. 50,000. 58,466. That number caused every single hunter present to whip around and stare. In a fraction of a second, countless gun barrels were pointed straight at Jae-in. He's corrupted. This bastard is corrupted. He could only scream out for help to the only person he knew. Mr. Kim, save me. But right now, the man was no different from the rest of them. Die, you damned corrupted monster. At that point, Jae-in gave up. He threw both hands up in surrender. Suddenly, the inspector panicked and announced, I'm so sorry. I misread it. 0. It's 0.58466. That number sent shockwaves through the entire area once again. 0.5. What on earth does that even mean? And just like that, Jae-in successfully made it inside the gate. Wearing a gas mask, he held a tiny sickle in his hand. Jae-in dug up the soil little by little, shoveling it into a sack. The black dragon wouldn't stop whining and demanding. Blood. Give me blood. A man with aching joints stood up and called out. Let's take a quick breather. Before Jae-in could even stand up, the other hunters teased him. Hey kid, 0.5, with a karma index that low. You probably don't even need a break, huh? Earlier, the inspector had sheepishly explained. It seems the device glitched out. Jae-in, after the mission ends, let's remeasure your initial karma index. Jae-in could only helplessly accept the nickname. Why did the machine have to break right when it was my turn? One of them asked curiously. Did you guys find anything? Even after digging for a while, the answer was a no. This mission's pretty much a bust. Same here, nothing but weeds. Man, it'd be great if we could at least find a few poisonous mushrooms. Suddenly, Tae-jin's body began acting strange, his eyes gradually becoming shrouded in toxic haze. Jae-in asked anxiously, Mr. Kim, are you okay? Min-soo quickly noticed. Looks like signs of corruption. Hey Kim Tae-jin, are you alright? A second later, Tae-jin jammed an injector into his arm. He panted heavily under intense strain, then leaned his head against a nearby tree trunk, reassuring everyone. I'm fine. A single dose of morphine is enough to handle this much. Min-soo reminded him earnestly. Don't go pushing yourself to the brink for nothing. Kid 0.5, it won't be long before you start suffering from corruption symptoms like that too. After every mission in a dark zone, make sure you get proper rest, and always check your gas mask filter. Slip up for even a second, and your karma index could skyrocket in the blink of an eye. Right at that moment, someone walked over. Min-soo instinctively turned around and recognized him. Mr. Jun-shik, I haven't seen you around. Did you manage to find anything? Jun-shik approached and called out. Come over here, everyone. How long are we planning to keep pulling weeds for chump change like this? He had scouted ahead pretty thoroughly. It's right over there, in the area those government officials explicitly warned us to stay away from. A goblin settlement. A ferocious goblin bared its fangs and charged forward. The hunters immediately opened fire, obliterating them. Even so, their numbers were overwhelming, endless as an army. Jun-shik tightened his grip on his hand, wearing an acceleration ring. Thanks to the artifact, Jun-shik shot forward like an arrow, taking down scores of goblins in a matter of seconds. He scoffed in disdain. Too slow. Jae-in stood on the sideline stunned, not daring to charge in. With just a sword like this, I don't stand a ghost of a chance to jump into the fray. The black dragon urged him in wild excitement. Blood. I smell fresh blood over there. Jae-in hid behind the foliage and asked suspiciously, Where? That tent over there. While he wasn't paying attention, a goblin pounced down from above. The black dragon gasped in alarm. Master, I know you're overly merciful, but at times like this, before it could even finish its sentence, it was shaken to its core by Jae-in slicing the goblin clean in two. After knocking it out cold, Jae-in wondered, What were you saying just now? The black dragon didn't even know where to begin. No, I just thought with your personality, you'd say stuff like violence is wrong, life is precious, and fail to fight. Jae-in recalled calmly. That's what the director of the orphanage always taught me. He had constantly reminded him, Jaein, no matter what happens, you must never use violence against another person. Back then, Jaein had naively asked, so if the opponent isn't a person, I can use violence, right? Though taken aback for a second, the director immediately flashed a thumbs up in approval. Exactly. Done reminiscing, Jaein drove the black dragon blade into the goblin. It guzzled down the blood voraciously, marveling. It's been so long since I last had a proper feast. Jaein accidentally noticed a transformation, feeling as though something strange had just entered his body. The black dragon knew that this was the true nature of karma. If you wish to absorb it, you must devour the opponent's very soul. Those hunters over there only absorb the leftover scraps and then go around whining about their karma index. You can only become truly powerful by absorbing every last bit of their karma and soul. Over on the other side, a knife was raised as a hunter excitedly harvested a goblin corpse. 50,000 won apiece, not bad at all. Only then did Jaein remember, right, I forgot to cut off its ear. The moment they saw him, they hurried him along. Kid 0.5, what's taking you so long? Jaein explained honestly. There was a goblin by the tent. I killed it. That left Min Su pretty surprised. Wasn't that your very first kill? Guess you've officially graduated from rookie status. Not far away, Jun Shik was checking his gun. All right, let me worry about the goblins later. Like I said earlier, let's look for artifacts first. I have a feeling the boss is around here somewhere. Everyone agreed. All right, let me head out. The group of hunters pushed deeper once again, chatting and laughing as they walked. If we find an artifact to sell on the market, it could be worth up to 10 million at least. Then we won't have to worry about money for a good while. I'll use that money to take my daughter to an amusement park. I'll combine it with my savings to buy an engagement ring. After chatting for a bit, the group stood before a massive door. Jun Shik took the lead and pushed the door open. But Jaein quickly noticed the crimson glow emanating from an eerie demonic skull. That thing, sprawled across the floor, were goblin corpses, and standing right in the center was one holding a staff. It quickly caught the scent of humans. The group of hunters hurriedly urged each other along. Every single one of them could clearly see what kind of creature it was. A goblin shaman. The goblin shaman shrieked, summoning an astounding amount of demonic magic. Its pupils glared frantically straight at the group of hunters. But just a few seconds after raising its head, its face lit up. The goblin shaman went straight to meet its ancestors just like that. Min Su stood there dazed. I got startled and pulled the trigger by mistake. Jun Shik gave up on scolding him. Whatever, fine. Good job. Min Su stepped forward and removed an ancient ring from the goblin shaman's hand. He admired it for a moment, immensely satisfied. Sweet, this is the one. Looks like it's worth a pretty penny. The guy next to him hesitated slightly. This is an accursed item, is it? If it is, its value is going to plummet hard. Jaein asked out of curiosity. Can I take a quick look? Min Su didn't mind. Sure, let him check it out. Just to be safe, don't put it on. It'll be bad news if it turns out to be cursed. The black dragon suddenly took notice and muttered, Humph, I shouldn't give it to this guy. Jaein slipped it right onto his finger anyway. My precious. He was instantly transported into a pitch-black space. The ring's voice echoed with a solemn temptation. Do you desire power? Jaein answered bluntly. Nope. The spirit inside the ring read off its script smoothly. If you desire... Wait, what? Jaein replied seriously. I don't need power or anything like that. The next line came out even more grandly. I can grant you anything you wish for. Being hungry, he immediately asked. Even a large hamburger beef burger combo meal from Hamteria? The confirmation that was about to pour out cut short. Seeing it hesitate like that, Jaein scoffed. I guess you can't then. It instantly corrected itself. No, I can do it. I can totally do it. But in exchange, you must offer a sacrifice. Jaein raised an eyebrow, thoroughly intrigued. What do I have to sacrifice? The spirit inside the ring said. If you offer up the souls of 3 loved ones as a sacrifice. Jaein bluntly pulled the ring off, abruptly changing the subject. I'm going to go look around a bit more. The moment he took it off, he was snapped back to reality. Seeing everyone pointing their guns at him, Jaein raised his hands in utter bewilderment. What's going on? Why are you guys doing this? They were terrified as well. No, It's just that out of nowhere you kept muttering my precious and stuff, so I thought you got possessed by a cursed object. Once they confirmed Jaein was back to normal, they lowered their weapons. Jaein handed it back to Min Soo. Here you go. Just then, someone nearby noticed. Kim Tae-jin, are you okay? The look in his eyes had completely changed. The group of hunters scrambled to leave. This guy, his eyes have gone pitch black. Let's get out of here first. We need to head back right now, in case anything goes wrong. Even so, Tae-jin broke free and insisted. I'm fine, I just need to swap out the filter. Jun-shik raised his gun with a dark, grim expression. There's a much simpler fix. The black dragon urgently screamed out a warning. Host dodge. Blood. Unbelievably, Jun-shik opened fire and gunned down all three of them. He then whirled around, intending to shoot Jaein as well. But Jaein bolted as fast as his legs could carry him, ducking behind the building. Jun-shik was in no mood to let Jaein off the hook. He advanced slowly, marveling out loud. He's a total amateur, yet he still managed to dodge my shot just now. Feeling his heavy breathing, Jaein instantly realized his filter. Almost got shot right in the head just now. Jaein grimaced in intense frustration. How could you shoot your own teammates? What the hell are you doing? Jun-shik stated bluntly. Keeping everything for myself is way better than splitting it 5 ways. Jaein couldn't believe he had such motives. Are you insane? The Management Bureau won't let this slide. Jun-shik was absolute in his confidence. The gate will close anyway once I'm done. By bringing the cursed object back, no one will ever know what went down here. That's why I made up my mind long ago. So all I need to do is kill you, and it's over. The moment Jun-shik opened fire, Jaein had already darted to another spot. Fast. However, Jun-shik's speed was by no means lacking either. Jaein scrambled frantically to dodge the barrage of bullets. Jun-shik paused briefly to swap in a fresh magazine. How much longer do you think you can keep running? Suddenly, Jaein ambushed right out from the side of the doorway. He swung the sword with all his strength, but luckily Jun-shik managed to dodge it. Jaein immediately took off running. Damn it, he dodged it. Jun-shik angrily sped up his pursuit. You idiot, how dare you throw away your only weapon? But the moment his eyes landed on it, he stared in utter disbelief. How is that even possible? Black Dragon quickly flew right back into Jaein's hand. Without a second thought, he swung his blade down at Jun-shik. Instead of hitting him, it sliced his gun straight in half. Both of them stared blankly at the ruined gun, before looking at each other in sheer dumbfoundedness. Jaein cracked a wide, taunting grin. Having lost his weapon, Jun-shik was now the one being chased by Jaein. Taking advantage of Black Dragon's long reach, Jaein casually slashed him across the back. A scar on the back is a swordsman's shame. Jun-shik squeezed the ring in his hand tightly and cursed. Damn it. Hurry up and speed me up. In just a split second, he managed to pull ahead, but Jaein was still chasing him down like a maniac. Where do you think you're going? As he ran, Jaein playfully begged, I promise I won't kill you. Just give me an arm. Just one arm. Come on, stop right there. Jun-shik was drenched in sweat. Running for his life, he screamed, You freaking lunatic, get the hell away from me. He ran so fast he didn't even dare to look back. It wasn't until he had put some real distance between them that Jun-shik finally stopped, leaning against a tree and panting heavily. Did I lose him? Only then could he actually think straight. That psycho must have been corrupted after taking off his gas mask. My gas mask is broken. If I don't get out of this dark zone fast. All of a sudden, Jun-shik flinched. Shit. He blamed himself in deep regret. The ring? I should have snatched that ring. Going back empty-handed after coming this far just isn't going to cut it. Jun-shik grumbled in frustration. Damn it. I have to go back. How the hell did things turn out like this? Right at that moment, Jaein popped his head out. Peekaboo. Found you, Jun-shik. He immediately took off, running again. Even so, Jun-shik refused to give up. I just need to find the cursed item real quick and head for the gate. Just then, his eyes caught sight of a gun. As Jaein was cheerfully giving chase and calling out to Jun-shik, the guy dove forward to grab his savior. You're dead meat, kid. But right at that moment, a pair of feet stopped right in front of him. Looking up, Jun-shik froze, completely unable to react. Tae-jin, whose one arm was corrupted, was raising it to attack. Still failing to process the situation, Jun-shik blurted out, Mr. Kim. In a mere split second, his head was sent flying by Tae-jin. Witnessing this scene, all the fun instantly vanished from Jaein as Tae-jin's gaze shifted toward him. Powerful gusts of wind billowed from where Tae-jin stood. Jaein hurriedly ducked behind a house. Taking a closer look, even a newbie like him could tell. Mr. Kim had turned entirely into a monster. Black Dragon spoke up to confirm. He's been corrupted. Even so, Jaein was still completely shocked. He already looked bad before. But since when was he this fast? Black Dragon reminded him. He's wearing the Goblin Mage's ring. He must have succumbed to its temptation when he was at death's door. Jaein suddenly remembered the deal. It will grant you whatever you desire, provided you offer the souls of 3 of your kind as a sacrifice. Breaking a cold sweat, he muttered, "No way." Staring at the corpses, Jaein was still in utter shock. Did he sacrifice the other hunters just to steal the ring's power? He racked his brain in anxiety. What am I supposed to do now? Over there, Tae-jin kept raining relentless blows on Jun Shik's corpse. Seeing him go wild like that, Jaein's mind went completely blank. He quickly made up his mind. Right, time to run. But Black Dragon chimed in, "No, fight him." Jaein argued with it in frustration. "Hey, no matter how bloodthirsty you are, doing that will get me killed." This time, Black Dragon sounded remarkably serious. It's not just about blood. With him mutated to that extent, you won't be able to run away. His senses are insanely sharp, so sneaking off is impossible. Jaein hesitated, poking his head out to observe. "Then do you have any better ideas?" Black Dragon started spewing nonsense. "Stand your ground and die like a warrior." On the other side, Tae-jin continued demolishing the houses, kicking up clouds of dust all over the goblin settlement. Jaein perceptively realized. Is he looking for me? Suddenly, an idea popped into his head. "Hey, Black Dragon, you said letting you drink blood makes you stronger, right?" It immediately confirmed. That's right. Commit evil deeds and absorb blood to gain power. Jaein instantly jabbed his sword into a nearby goblin corpse, but Black Dragon caught on right away. This power. Is this the corpse of that goblin from earlier? Even Jaein felt like he gained way less power than before. Black Dragon nonchalantly explained, "Of course, if you didn't kill it with your own hands, your ownership over it is reduced." So Jaein had to drag himself over to another corpse and plunge his sword in. Don't expect everything to be handed to you on a silver platter. Tae-jin was growing crazier by the second, his face completely distorted. Seeing the energy surge up, Jaein tested the waters. "How about now, Black Dragon? Is this enough?" It calculated for a moment and replied, "This will do." Just in time, Tae-jin appeared right nearby. Great. Jaein mustered up all his courage, held his sword, and prepared to charge in. Black Dragon even noisily added, "At least this will help you land a decent hit before you die." Jaein slammed on his brakes instantly. Hurriedly hiding behind a nearby tree, he complained, "So I'm gonna die either way?" Black Dragon gave a serious assessment. He was only recently corrupted, so he hasn't even formed a complete contract yet. If you're insanely lucky, you might actually survive. Jaein suddenly recalled what it had said earlier. If you didn't kill it with your own hands, your ownership over it is reduced. Right, those sacrificed hunters were already dead to begin with. Realizing this, Jaein stood up once more. So he hasn't obtained its full power yet, right? He threw his sword straight out without hesitation. Seeing a foreign object fly past, Tae-jin growled and tracked it, while Black Dragon roared in sheer anger. "You little brat, how dare you use me as bait?" Taking advantage of Tae-jin destroying things as he chased after it, Jaein bolted in the opposite direction. Nice! His eyes turned razor sharp. If I remember correctly, right over here. Soon enough, Jaein found it. The exact spot where the corpses of the goblins they had gathered were piled up high. As soon as he raised his hand, Black Dragon flew right back into it. He plunged it deep into the mountain of goblin corpses to fuel it up. "Black Dragon, drink up." Waves of energy poured in, delighting Black Dragon. Ooh, well look at that. On the outside, Jaein watched it suck the blood at a turtle's pace. Losing his patience, he urged, "Can't you drink a little faster?" Busy feeding, Black Dragon offered only a brief explanation. "If you swallow too fast, you'll get indigestion. The commotion once again drew Tae-jin's attention. He dropped low and crawled rapidly toward Jaein. Seeing him approach, Jaein gasped in disbelief. Left in a sticky dilemma, Jaein could only run in circles around the pile of corpses. I haven't even finished draining their blood. Suddenly, Jaein froze for a few split seconds, then pointed straight at the sky and shouted loudly, "Mr. Kim, what's that over there?" But Tae-jin didn't give a damn and kept roaring as he chased after him. Jaein scrambled away at full speed again. Damn it, that didn't work. Running for his life, Jaein calculated in his head, if I move more than 3 meters away, Black Dragon will recall back to me, so I can't run too far. The goblin's blood is my only shot. Just as Tae-jin was about to pounce on Jaein, his face turned pale and he yelled out, "Black Dragon!" Over on the other side, the sword burst with a bright amber glow. Jaein pinned all his hopes on this single moment. Right now, he ducked low and slid backward. Thanks to the calculated slide, he didn't lose his balance at all. Because Jaein bought enough time, Black Dragon had completely drained the goblins dry. As the distance reached its limit, the sword gradually faded away and returned right back into Jaein's hand. This instantly surged a wave of confidence back into him. Facing the corrupted Tae-jin, who no longer looked human at all, Black Dragon shouted in excitement, "Swing your sword with everything you've got." Jaein didn't hesitate to pull back for leverage. A single slash cleanly severed the man's arm. Tae-jin roared in agonizing pain. Black Dragon seized the moment to push him. Stab him in the heart right now. Jaein charged forward fiercely with his sword, his aim locked dead on Tae-jin's heart. Suddenly, Jaein caught sight of his remaining arm. To make sure there wouldn't be any mistakes, Jaein accelerated, plunging his blade straight into Tae-jin's shoulder. His whole body collapsed heavily onto the ground. Jaein gave a sharp command. "Black Dragon, drink up." A powerful surge of magical energy burst forth from that spot. Tae-jin's face slowly knitted back together, and his pupils gradually gave way to the whites of his eyes. In just a split second, Tae-jin regained consciousness. Outside the gate, an employee hurriedly ran in to report. "Manager, warehouse number 6 exploded again." He whipped around in anger and scolded, "What is it this time?" Despite being terrified, the employee still had to report. A containment officer got bewitched by a monster. He kept reminding the manager, "I told you, we're already way over capacity. When are they going to build a new warehouse?" Manager Kim walked off in irritation. "How should I know? They said there's no open land left." He led a few fully equipped personnel along with him. Those damn monsters can still bewitch people even when they're locked up in the shelter. Upon reaching room 6, he ran into Chung Hwa and Du Kyung. Du Kyung simply greeted him casually. "Manager Kim, you're here?" The employee asked in confusion. "Team Leader Park, where's the rest of the team?" Du Kyung did a quick mental count and replied, "They'll be here shortly." Manager Kim issued a decisive order. "As soon as everyone gathers, we move in and suppress it. Get ready." He grumbled angrily under his breath. "Those damn monsters, don't they have a trash can just for monsters? Wouldn't it be great if we could just throw all of them away?" Du Kyung said nothing more, but a specific phrase caught his attention. "Just for monsters? A trash can? Over here." Jaein let out a sigh of relief as he held the ancient ring. He stood before Tae-jin and asked dumbly, "So, is it over?" Inside the room, Du Kyung was using a checking device. He was quite surprised by the reading. 1865. It dropped even more than earlier. Du Kyung sat in front of Jaein and asked, "When you first returned from the gate, that index was as high as 6,300. How did it drop to just over 1,800 in the blink of an eye?" He was pretty amazed after hearing Jaein reject the cursed items contract so easily. And to think you could actually bring someone who was already corrupted back to normal. Du Kyung's tone suddenly turned serious. "Jaein, if that's true, I have a favor to ask of you." He made a sincere plea. "Could you act as a trash can for the Control Bureau?" Hearing that choice of word, Jaein's face contorted. "A trash can?" Realizing he hadn't corrected his phrasing, Du Kyung quickly explained, "That's not what I meant. I want to ask you to serve as storage unit number 7 for the Control Bureau." He hesitated slightly, but he still had to acknowledge it, including the fact that he brought Kim Tae-jin, who had been corrupted, back to normal. This is a major, unprecedented event. Jaein couldn't help but glance over at his sword. Although cursed items capable of absorbing karma occasionally appeared, if they absorbed too much karma, the user would also become corrupt. According to Du Kyung's assessment, Jaein absorbed that much karma, yet wasn't corrupted at all, and it can even purify the karma index at an extraordinarily fast speed. Of course, he didn't rule out the strange things about Jaein either. On top of that, his normal karma index was unusually low. After listing the reasons, Du Kyung wrapped it up. Based on various analysis results, the conclusion we reached is that Jaein has corruption resistance. Facing Jaein's stunned expression, Du Kyung placed his full trust in him. If it's you, Jaein, you'll definitely be able to save many more people and maybe even protect the entire nation of South Korea. The term was quite new to Jaein, corruption resistance. So what about the storage unit thing you mentioned earlier? Du Kyung hid nothing and explained, the Control Bureau has storage facilities specifically for storing extremely dangerous cursed items. But do you know that the maintenance cost for just a single cursed item runs into tens of millions of won? He held up his hand, offering both the numbers and a persuasive pitch. If you agree to take custody of those cursed items, Jaein will pay you a storage fee of at least 5 million won. On top of that, whatever extra requests you have, we'll give our full support. The figure took Jaein aback. 5 million won. Right off the bat, he was already thinking about delicious, fragrant hamburgers. 5 million won meant he could buy how many Hamteria burgers, he wondered. But Jaein still answered level-headedly. Please give me a little time to think about it. I'm not entirely clear about my own body's condition yet. Du Kyung had already anticipated this issue. We understand. He took the initiative to set a timeline. Our side also needs to report to higher-ups. Could you give us about a week? Jaein hesitated slightly, doing the math. If it was that amount of time, Du Kyung picked up where he left off. As for the testing and trials, we'll have everything ready. Jaein nodded, taking it as understood. Up in a high-rise office at the Control Bureau, Chief Key slammed the report hard onto the desk. Do you think this makes any sense? Looking at it, he couldn't believe his eyes. The initial karma index was only 0.58, and in just a few hours it dropped from over 6,000 to just over 2,000. Du Kyung confirmed with firm conviction. I tested it myself, so I'm 100% sure of it. Key's aging eyes narrowed inquisitively. It had been over 10 years since the world connected to the Dark Zone through the gates, and humanity had discovered new substances and countless resources from the Dark Zone. But at the same time, the number of cursed items was also growing day by day, until South Korea found itself completely flooded with cursed items. Facing the current situation, Key tapped his fingers rhythmically, weighing his options with a headache. This was also the first case he had ever encountered. Someone who could absorb karma and then purify it in such a short time. Du Kyung continued his persuasion. The trials will begin with volunteers from our team first. The isolation department has already agreed to cooperate. Key slammed the desk, finalizing his decision. Very well. He entrusted Du Kyung with an additional task. The chief of the Special Operations Division isn't here. As the leader of Team 2, you hold the highest decision-making authority in the division. I'm handing the Special Operations Division's work over to you to handle. Du Kyung gave a stern nod of agreement. Go ahead with the trial. Time passed quickly, and 4 days later, Jaein was back at headquarters. As soon as he saw Du Kyung, he bowed his head. Hello. Du Kyung leaned in to return the greeting and asked, You're here? Have you run into any trouble lately? Following Du Kyung into the elevator, Jaein replied, No, nothing really. Just took on a few E-rank missions every now and then. Also, I recently awakened my mana. That caught Du Kyung quite off guard. You awakened your mana? Jaein recounted candidly. Yeah. After Black Dragon fully digested all the karma it swallowed, I awakened right after. At this point, he asked curiously, Oh, right. How is Mr. Kim Tae-jin doing? I haven't had a chance to visit him yet. Du Kyung had been keeping tabs on it, too. If you mean Hunter Kim Tae-jin, he's already recovered. No need to worry. The surgery to reattach his arm was a success. Hearing that eased Jaein's mind significantly. That's a relief. Before long, the elevator doors opened. Jaein spoke up nervously. Hello. Manager Kim stepped forward happily. Oh, Jaein. He walked over warmly to shake Jaein's hand. Pleased to meet you. I'm Kim Dong-ho, head of the Control Bureau's Isolation Department. Knowing the drill, Jae-in introduced himself. Hello, I'm Yoon Jae-in. Then Dong-ho turned around to guide Jae-in directly. This way, please. Dong-ho pointed at a vehicle with an awkward smile. As for South Korea, I'll personally take you on a tour of warehouse number 6. The vehicle soon started rolling. Surrounding them were only dim lights and piles of stacked cargo. Jae-in couldn't help asking out of curiosity. Even though it's underground, this place is really tall and spacious. Is there any particular reason it had to be built this big? Dong-ho explained to him cheerfully. If cursed items are kept too close to each other, they can cause a chain reaction and lead to severe consequences. Because if someone gets tempted and takes a cursed item, they'll tend to want to throw away all the surrounding items along with it. Suddenly, Jae-in's gaze paused. Is it completely sealed up in poured concrete like this? He gave him an example to help him visualize. That's right. Even if an ordinary person smashed at it for a whole 100 days, they wouldn't be able to get it out. Inside, there are also 2 layers of sturdy steel safes wrapping it up. As soon as the vehicle came to a stop, Dong-ho stepped out first. All right, well then. He stood before the concrete slab and knocked on it experimentally. First, let's pull out about 2 or 3 items to test things out. How about this one? Do Kyung's and Chung Hwa's expressions turned grim, because the ones who had to smash at a chunk of concrete for 100 days without getting it out were now. Dong-ho stood there casually and said to Jae-in, because the deeper you go into the warehouse, the more extremely dangerous real deals are kept. For now, we'll test things out with the low-grade, cursed items here first. Suddenly, his face went pale as he called out, Jae-in. Dong-ho was scared out of his wits and tumbled over by Jae-in. Without anyone noticing, Jae-in had taken the wheel. Just like that, he drove off without a word, leaving Dong-ho completely bewildered. With his hair a mess, Dong-ho asked in alarm, Hey, what do you think you're doing? Even Do Kyung was worried. Don't tell me he's going deep inside to look for high-grade cursed items? Jae-in drove right along while Black Dragon hummed joyfully, Come to me. Come to me. By this point, he was entirely hypnotized, with nothing in his head except high-grade cursed items. In the control room, blaring alarms rang out continuously, signaling an intruder in Level 2 restricted zone. That lunatic was none other than Yoon Jae-in, who was behind the wheel of a military jeep, speeding like crazy. The security system immediately deployed steel bollards from underground to block the road. But Jae-in didn't even bother hitting the brakes. He steered skillfully, drifting past obstacles like he was in an action movie. Automated gun turrets extended from the walls, locking their sights onto the vehicle. Bullets rained down like hail amid thick smoke and fire, but the jeep kept hurtling forward frantically. Panic-stricken surveillance personnel reported that they couldn't stop him because the intruder's reflexes were impossibly fast. They realized that the demonic artifact itself was guiding the vehicle to dodge incoming attacks in an unbelievable manner. An order to drop Blast Gate 7 was issued immediately to stop him at all costs. The heavy steel door began descending right in front of Jae-in's hood. Instead of slowing down, Jae-in grit his teeth and floored the gas pedal. With the engine roaring, he decided to play a game of life or death roulette with the Grim Reaper. Jae-in laughed heartily like a true villain, declaring that no one could stand in his way. An earth-shattering collision occurred as the vehicle slammed straight into the bottom edge of the half-closed gate. The jeep flipped over, flew through the air, and tumbled several times across the concrete floor. White smoke billowed from the wreckage, leaving the vehicle a twisted heap of scrap metal. From the ruins, John stepped out, his hand tightly gripping the demon's sword that radiated a fiery red glow. He charged straight toward the final steel wall with a look of pure excitement. Jae-in swung his sword repeatedly at the thick steel, complaining nonstop that the wall was too hard and hurting his hands. Ignoring the system's warnings, he channeled all his power to hack through everything blocking his path. Finally, the heart-shaped artifact was revealed right before Jae-in's eyes. Right then, a green-haired female officer appeared with a machine gun mounted on her arm, ordering him to freeze. Disregarding the gun barrel pointed at him, Jae-in casually stared at the artifact as if eyeing a delicious feast. His mouth gaped open and his tongue drooled in craving right in front of the entire security team. The female officer decisively pulled the trigger, blasting a powerful beam of energy straight at the intruder. A massive explosion erupted, engulfing Jaeon's location in fire and smoke. As the dust cleared, the green-haired female officer's eyes widened in sheer shock. Jaeon was still standing strong, holding the glowing red heart artifact in his hand. She could only scream in desperation to stop him, but Jaeon casually brought the artifact to his mouth and took a huge bite out of it. He munched loudly on the priceless object as if savoring a rare delicacy. Jaeon started reviewing it, saying the outer shell of this heart was pretty chewy but had a nice crunch to it. He went on praising how the juice inside was refreshing, sweet, and melted right in his mouth. After finishing it off, he excitedly announced he'd give this dish a super high score. That action drove the female officer insane, causing her to fire frantically at Jaeon. At that moment, the system prompted Jaeon to immediately use the power of the heart, leaving Jaeon completely bewildered as to what that power was. The female officer kept unleashing lead, sending dozens of Gatling rounds flying straight at him. The system notified him that the demonic energy had fully assimilated and told him to activate it. Jaeon closed his eyes to focus, feeling the surge of power circulating throughout his body. The world around him abruptly slowed down, with bullets hovering before his eyes at a snail's pace. Unaware, the female officer was still pouring all her firepower onto a target that was no longer there. Jaeon was amazed to see everything frozen in place, allowing him to casually stroll through the hail of bullets. But immediately after, he panicked because he had no clue how to turn off this god mode. The green-haired female officer kept firing wildly, bullets spraying everywhere, yet not a single one grazed Jaeon. She froze in disbelief as she realized the enemy had suddenly vanished from her sight. Jaeon unexpectedly appeared right behind her, raising both hands to signal that he wanted to talk things out. He shouted, offering to negotiate and promising to compensate for everything he had accidentally broken. The green-haired female officer was rendered speechless by the guy's sheer craziness, asking if he was even out of his mind. Looking at the destruction, from the shattered glass walls to the overturned vehicle, Jaeon had indeed created a total mess. He insisted he was perfectly sane and reiterated that he would pay for the repairs of the vehicle and all other damages. Just as he finished speaking, another massive explosion went off right behind Jaeon, but he merely flashed a bright smile. The two fell into silence amidst the fiery scene, with a single tire still rolling past them. Putting on the most pathetic face possible, Jaeon asked if they could settle everything for just the cost of a wrecked car. Demonic artifacts will always try to entrance their hosts. Just look at how much these people were struggling. Yoon Jaeon was immune to corruption, but when it came to these temptation games, he seemed a bit naive. The number displayed on the karma scanner was 1,190. Captain Park Do-kyung wondered aloud, noting it was at 13,000 just a moment ago and dropped super fast, suggesting that higher karma meant faster recovery speed. Jaeon still didn't understand why his stats had spiked when he hadn't absorbed any bad karma. So the captain explained it was due to the demon vessel he had just swallowed. Those were corrupted artifacts that fully fused with the body. The more one used them, the more intensely the demonic karma flames inside would flare up. The vessel inside Jaeon was the heart of rapid current, which pushed the body to its absolute peak speed, making the surrounding world appear as if it were in slow motion. But it was also the very thing that caused the infamous 6-second disaster at Yudo years ago, and one look at that screaming face made it clear how horrifying it was. Back then, a wielder of the demon heart couldn't handle the power and lost his mind. As a result, over 2,000 people were slaughtered in a mere 6 seconds, leaving bodies strewn everywhere. Hearing that, even Jaeon had to gulp nervously. The captain mentioned it was a relief that such a dangerous thing ended up inside Jaeon. As long as he was alive, everyone else was safe because that power was now bound within his body. He even strictly instructed that if Jaeon were ever to die, he had to make sure to destroy his own heart, leaving Jaeon only able to blurt out a stunned woe. Still, enduring 10,000 karma at just rank 1 awakening was quite impressive, and the captain encouraged him, saying once he grew stronger and reached rank 3, handling these demonic items would be a piece of cake. Jaeon immediately asked how to rank up, And the simplest way was to enter the dark zone to fight, continuously accumulating and recovering karma stats. Just repeating that process over and over, Jaeon began to ponder. He suddenly realized he didn't need to go anywhere far to absorb karma, since his target was right in front of him, giving the captain a sudden chill down his spine. Wearing a face full of fake medical ethics, Jaeon drew his sword and said he'd stab the captain gently. 2 days later, Park Do-kyung appeared with his body wrapped in bandages, accompanied by Agent Kong, looking completely battered. Jaeon asked with a bright smile how he felt after being discharged, and the captain replied with a hearty laugh, "Better than ever." And these were the actual stats shown on the scanner. The captain's karma used to hover around 30,000, but now it felt light as a feather, and his chronic neck and shoulder pain was totally gone, much to his delight. Even so, Agent Kong didn't forget to bring up how he had stabbed them to pieces just to find the most effective pressure points. Jaeon was now more confident, having identified the sweet spot between the 4th and 6th ribs, claiming next time it would take only a single stab. The demon's sword seemed thrilled, praising the blood and karma of those two as quite delicious and demanding more to drink. Captain Park shifted to main business, handing Jaeon a file. Besides artifact storage duties, he wanted Jaeon to take on the job of special therapy as well. Jaeon asked blankly if draining karma even counted as therapy, and the captain affirmed it was a miracle that doctors could only dream of performing. They sat down at the table to discuss, with Agent Kong walking him through the terms and showing him where to sign. Jaeon asked to keep only 1,000,000 won of his salary and donate the rest to the Emmanuel orphanage, a decision he had made ever since he had to leave the orphanage after aging out, showcasing a truly commendable heart. Touched, the captain patted his shoulder and declared that from now on, Jaeon was family. He told Jaeon to just call him bro, and since Agent Kong was 4 years older, he should address her as sis to be close. Jaeon looked at the captain and delivered a blunt blow. "You look way too old. Calling you bro doesn't really fit," which left the captain frozen for a few seconds. Park Do-kyung was completely crushed considering he was only 28, while Agent Kong quietly brought out a black box. The director had decided to equip Jaeon with special support gear, causing his eyes to go wide as he stared at the glowing box. It was the lightning ring, which allowed electric currents to channel through the sword to boost attack power, looking seriously sleek. Jaeon tried on the new gear, and the demon's sword immediately screeched, threatening to kill him, proving to be one stubborn host-bound entity. He could only offer an apologetic chuckle, as he wasn't bothered by those threats anyway. Jaeon grew curious about the gold necklace, which the captain explained was the diamond demon-subduing necklace, designed to resist mental manipulation and charm. Word was it suited fragile souls easily tempted like John, and the captain even suggested testing it out with a low-grade demonic artifact. But he had barely opened the box's lid when Jaeon charged forward with a bizarre look on his face, screaming, "My precious!" leaving the captain shouting in panic before he could react, while Agent Kong stood by in speechless silence. In the end, he also received a steel frame bracelet to boost his physical strength, completing an equipment set armed to the teeth. Welcome to the Bureau's training facility, where Jaeon and Agent Kong were gearing up for a practical session. Agent Kong, who also possessed a demon vessel, was going to personally oversee his training, planning to combine basic strength building with artifact control. Since they had agreed to speak comfortably beforehand, Jaeon immediately called her Manhwa sis in an ultra-sweet tone. She blushed slightly, but happily accepted her new little brother. And so the training session began, though it seemed far from easy as Jaeon had imagined, with his big sis going a bit too heavy on him. Manhwa told him to try activating the heart of rapid current bit by bit to feel the power, while Jaeon screamed in desperation as he was about to pass out from the intensity. Right in the middle of it, a soldier timidly walked in asking to undergo special therapy, acting as a literal savior, saving Jaeon from his workout. Jaeon rushed over like a godsend, smiling brightly as he welcomed his valued customer and promised to stab, treat him with utmost dedication. A decisive stab pierced right through the body, followed by a blood-curdling scream echoing across the room, making it clear this kind of therapy was absolute nightmare fuel. Alongside his training, Jaeon was actively working as a karma therapist for soldiers, though it seemed someone wasn't happy about it. A military officer burst in furiously, kicking the door open and cursing at everyone as a bunch of lunatics, his face making it obvious he was beyond enraged. It was Colonel Zhou Yangji, who bellowed that the Bureau had lured his soldiers with that nonsense therapy only to leave them all bedridden in the hospital. Kang Changhua tried to explain that they were merely helping those who voluntarily requested civilian treatment, advising the colonel to calm down. Colonel Zhou refused to accept that logic, shouting back, "What kind of therapy involves stabbing people up and throwing them straight into the hospital?" Agent Kong maintained her professional demeanor, asserting that seeking treatment outside military medicine was a soldier's personal choice, and the Bureau possessed all valid medical request documentations. Colonel Zhou slammed his hand on the desk and yelled that 22 of his soldiers were rendered unfit for combat due to that damn therapy, leaving the military severely shorthanded for the upcoming gate sweep. Kang Changhua looked him straight in the eyes and countered, "Their karma was already at critical levels. Were you seriously planning to throw them into the gate in that condition?" The colonel brushed it off, claiming that backing down just over slightly high karma numbers went against the military spirit, as soldiers must always be ready to sacrifice themselves for the country and its people. The soldiers with him chimed in, shouting about disciplinary spirit and how military personnel must obey absolute orders without question. What a bunch of conservatives. Jeon and Agent Kong listened in silence as the tension in the air became thick enough to cut with a knife. In his mind, John wondered to himself, sending soldiers with sky-high karma into the dark zone, and on top of that, trying to block the treatment method that helps lower their karma stats. He began to realize something was off. A meaningful smile appeared on John's face as he finally grasped the truth. Jeon suddenly stood up, pointed straight at the colonel's face, and loudly declared, "The mystery is solved. You are a corrupted one." Colonel Zhou was bewildered, not understanding what was happening, while Jeon accused him of trying to turn the soldiers under his command into corrupted beings just like himself, a truly psycho line of reasoning. Without waiting for the opponent to react, Jeon rushed forward with a crazy look on his face and plunged the demon sword straight into the colonel's gut, throwing in an extra line. "Don't worry, I'll cure you," as the colonel's scream rang out. "You crazy bastard," bringing a violent treatment session to an end. The sky was clear blue with blazing sunshine. Yoonjan narrowed his eyes slightly, shielding his face from the harsh sun after days of being locked in the interrogation room. He took a deep breath, savoring the taste of freedom in society outside, thinking it had been so long since he last saw the sun that it felt like temporary blindness. Captain Park Du-kyung stood waiting, welcoming him with a joke about buying tofu to wash away the bad luck, while Jeon chuckled awkwardly and took the opportunity to ask how Colonel Zhou's illness was progressing. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Colonel Zhou lay motionless wrapped in a heap of bandages, gnashing his teeth in deep hatred for the Bureau people. Jeon innocently asked if he had recovered yet, leaving Park Du-kyung frozen on the spot with cold sweat dripping down. He firmly asserted that all corrupted people needed treatment, which made Park Du-kyung break into a cold sweat over the kid's definition of curing with a sword. The captain explained that the old guy wasn't corrupted at all, just a clout chaser who pushed soldiers to their death for promotions and achievements. Hearing this, Jeon could only click his tongue in disappointment, thinking it was typical military behavior and secretly considering that being a freelance hunter might be way more comfortable. Park Du-kyung seriously announced the upcoming Dark Zone mission and requested support from Jeon. Both arrived at the scene where a purple gate was opening right in the middle of the street, completely surrounded by troops. Du-kyung stood with his arms crossed, signaling that his teammates had arrived. This was the first time he formally introduced the members of Special Task Force 2 to Jeon. Everyone was thrilled to finally work together after seeing Jeon train like a maniac earlier, and Jang Tae-shik, the red-haired guy wielding a massive spiked mace, introduced himself with a bright smile. Next to him was Min Do-hyun, looking noticeably slender and calmer with a long spear in his hand. The introductions went smoothly enough until the entire team approached the scene. Park Du-kyung clicked his tongue, sensing they had stumbled into another headache-inducing mess. In front of the gate, a green-haired female operative stood confronting the soldiers. She asserted that the special task force had been designated to clear this gate. But the military commander shouted an objection, adamantly refusing to let anyone step inside. The female operative knitted her brows, noting the gate had been open for 3 days and the military still hadn't resolved. The old commander started making excuses about unexpected situations delaying the search. She could only sigh in fed-up frustration, unable to comprehend what games the military was playing, while the commander turned to Ijon suspiciously as the kid stood sniffing around, muttering about a faint scent of blood in the air. Park Do-kyung stepped forward to question the start time of the purge, since the current situation was extremely urgent. But the commander stubbornly yelled at them to get lost. So Do-kyung explained to John that the old man was intentionally blocking the way into the gate for no good reason. A young soldier covered in injuries ran up pleading for help because his comrade, Corporal Baek Jin-sung, was still trapped inside. Commander Park Man-ho couldn't care less, shouting at his men to chase the young soldier away, while Jaeon stared at that irresponsible attitude, sensing a shady cover-up from the higher-ups. He quietly pulled out his phone to check something on the bureau's list. A devilish smile slowly spread across John's face as it turned out these officers had all secretly registered for special therapy. The demon's sword Hyukro began to vibrate violently, screaming for blood as its surge of thirst mounted. Park Man-ho remained arrogant, declaring he was the highest authority here and no one was allowed to disobey him. Jaeon casually walked over, held out his phone, and asked point-blank if his name was Park Man-ho, leaving the old commander bewildered and clueless. Time to start the requested therapy session. Jaeon grinned ear to ear, plunging his sword straight through the poor commander's shoulder. A clean stab made Park Man-ho scream in agony as the onlookers realized in horror that this lunatic had struck again. John licked his lips, his eyes glowing with excitement as he scrolled through the list on his phone to find his next patient. He nonchalantly called out the next name, Lieutenant Ju Yong-woo, while the unlucky officer could only gape in sheer terror. Jeon casually drove his sword through the officer's shoulder to everyone's utter shock, offering a bright smile as he asked, "Lieutenant, you registered for therapy too, right?" Witnessing the horrific scene, the guards froze in place, dripping with sweat, terrified that this lunatic just skewered their commander's shoulder like child's play. Jeon glanced at the remaining officers with glowing red eyes, full of thrill, muttering to search for the next patient on his list. He cackled, raised his sword high, and charged at the officers like a mad savior, ignoring the feeble attempts of his teammates to stop. Park Do-kyung stood by and casually explained to the green-haired female officer that this was John's special medical method, leaving her completely speechless in silence. Plumes of pitch-black karma rose from the stab targets, signaling that a treatment session filled with blood and tears was complete. After clearing away the obstacles, the team officially stepped inside the gate, where a gloomy forest shrouded in thick fog appeared before their eyes. Captain Park Do-kyung reminded everyone to focus on the main objective: clear out the monsters and rescue Corporal Baek if he was still alive. The green-haired female officer noted that Corporal Baek might have been charmed and walked deeper into the fog on his own. Jaeon wondered why no one was wearing gas masks, but she explained that once mana awakened, those were no longer necessary, as the team quietly forged ahead through dense bushes with weapons tightly in hand, ready for anything. Suddenly, the green-haired female officer raised her hand to signal the team to halt, seemingly sensing something wrong ahead. She checked the device on her arm and detected a massive heat signature 500 meters away, meaning monsters were extremely close. Captain Park Do-kyung quickly felt the killer intent as well, ordering everyone to prepare for battle immediately. Special Task Force 2 swiftly took their formations, with Jang Tae-shik hoisting his mace and Min Do-hyun gripping his spear, ready to charge. The green-haired female officer unexpectedly called Jeon over, telling him to act as her support. And while Jeon was still confused, she rested a massive Gatling gun right onto his shoulder, prompting him to ask in confusion, "Like this?" The barrels began to spin rapidly, exhaling a chilly white mist as the moment to open fire arrived. Thunderous gunfire erupted, raining lead relentlessly onto the swarm of monsters charging out from the deep forest, filling a corner of the woods with dense smoke. It was a pack of ferocious monster wolves, but before they could even touch anyone, they were wiped out by the hail of bullets, splattering blood everywhere. The relentless rain of lead blew the monsters away, turning them into piles of minced meat in an instant through sheer, horrifying firepower. John stood perfectly still as a gun mount, calmly watching the wolves get mowed down one by one, feeling that the scene wasn't gruesome at all. A surviving wolf snarled and tried to pounce toward John, but was instantly cut off by another weapon. Jiang Taishik bellowed, valiantly blocking the monster's pounce with his round shield. The red-haired guy was no pushover either, blocking the strike while prepping a powerful counterattack with his spiked mace. With a grunt, Taishik swung his flail mace, carving a deadly arc through the air that made the remaining beasts hesitate before his sheer force. The spiked mace smashed directly into the wolf's head, making it yelp in pain before collapsing on the spot in an extremely clean finish. Meanwhile, Min Du-hyun's razor-sharp spear point began to speak, slicing through the air like black light. The tip pierced clean through the last monster, finishing it off effortlessly in a flawless display of team synergy. The three worked together seamlessly, wiping out the wolf pack in just a few minutes, while Captain Park observed from the sidelines with a satisfied look, asking if they needed him to lend a hand. Taishik and Du-hyun both yelled at him to stay put, claiming his involvement would only complicate things since the current lineup was more than enough. The demon sword Hyukro started whining again, screaming for blood because it hadn't gotten to touch a single monster, while John looked around casually, finding himself with nothing to do. Suddenly, Jaeon froze as a strange sensation washed over him, feeling like something around him was shifting unnaturally. He muttered, "Huh? Is that music?" As a melodious tune echoed through the gloomy forest, accompanied by a fog thicker than ever before. Hypnotized, Jeon gasped, "So pretty," and began wandering aimlessly toward the music, ignoring the demon sword's screaming alarms inside his mind. Hyukro growled at him to snap out of it, but it was useless. Jaeon was completely hooked by the illusionary trap as the sword yelled helplessly, "Hey, master, where are you going?" The kid stood open-mouthed in awe as an unimaginable figure appeared before him. A beautiful fairy, right in the middle of a deadly forest. It was a dark elf female with alluring brown skin and long silver hair, smiling as she welcomed him. "Have you arrived, my lord?" In a scene straight out of a fairy tale. Jeon naively asked about Corporal Beck Jin Sung's whereabouts, having seemingly lost all his usual guard. The elf gently explained that strangers often got lost in the fog, and that she was protecting the soldier at her village, chatting in an extremely friendly manner. The demon sword Hyukro was losing its mind over its master's naivety, roaring that this was clearly a kidnapping rather than protection, and that she was extremely dangerous. The elf extended her hand, offering an enticing invitation. "Would you like to come back to the village with me?" As her amber eyes seemed to hold a dark scheme behind her lovely appearance. Jeon blushed, smiled foolishly, and agreed to follow the elf without a shred of doubt, totally smitten. The demon sword Hyukro could only cry out to the heavens, realizing its master had completely lost his marbles, screaming in despair. "We're doomed. This guy's totally brain dead." No matter how hoarse the sword screamed, Jaeon couldn't hear a thing, simply following the mystery dark elf's alluring back like a sleepwalker. John muttered praises about the fairy being both pretty and kind, truly grateful she helped Corporal Beck, genuinely believing he had met an angel, drooling as he walked while dreamily figuring out how to repay her kindness, asking himself with an insanely punchable face, "What should I do to pay back her kindness?" But then, a thought flashed in John's mind. An elf living in this dark zone must have accumulated a massive amount of karma, making his dull eyes suddenly shift as he thought. Then your karma stats must be ridiculously high, right? Jaeon flashed a bright smile again, sincerely thanking the girl for treating them well, and assuming her prey was trapped, the elf played modest in response, completely unaware that the Grim Reaper was right behind her. Suddenly, Gon revealed his true lunatic form with a smile stretching ear to ear, shouting, "I'm so grateful. So please take this gift of gratitude." while swinging his sword straight into the elf, leaving her eyes wide open, unable to react to the sudden twist. The dark elf's agonized scream echoed through the forest as John's blade pierced her body, leaving even the demon sword Hyukro stunned by its master's one-of-a-kind thank you gift, closing the chapter with the wild grin of a corruption-immune maniac.